Very much. It's really wonderful to be here. Thank you, Penny, and for everything that Concerned Women for America is doing on this vital issue that confronts the nation of debt and our fiscal crisis, as well as the broader regulatory issues that are assaulting the nation that Diana talked about. Indeed, you know, I really think that the nation must change course, and I think the conversation that we're having today about the debt limit is really a defining moment in that. And so I'm thinking, will we continue on this path of higher spending, bigger debt, and the larger taxes that are necessary to go with a big government, higher spending? Or will we return to low spending, limited government, and our very spirit of free enterprise that have afforded America the wonderful opportunities that we've had in the past? Well, I think we need to do the latter. And in order to do that, I think that we really need two things to turn the tide. First of all, we need immediate spending cuts, including in the entitlement programs. This is necessary to reassure the taxpayers and our global credit markets that we are both serious and can deliver on getting our fiscal and economic policies back on the right track. I said we need two things. We also need a growth agenda, and we need this through pro-growth, revenue-neutral tax reform, not closing loopholes only, but true revenue-neutral tax reform that will be growth-oriented. This will reassure businesses and investors that their taxes won't go up and that they can get back to the business of creating jobs and growing the economy so that we do have more taxpayers to close that revenue deficit, or to bring up our revenues to where they are supposed to be in a historical context. Okay, so how do we get the cuts that we think we need? We need to get them through sequencing. We need these immediate cuts, again, to stop the red ink and to reassure the markets. We also need future cuts. So just cutting next year's deficit in half is a first step. All right, we need to think more broadly about where the nation needs to be going. And then we also need to fix the process. So, you know, that's one of the things that I really like, and I think that the cut, cap, and balance has this sort of sequencing element right. We need to fix the process through enforceable spending caps, and then lock in the successes that we have with the balanced budget amendment so that we never, ever reach this point again. Now, details are important, and setting targets, as cut, cap, and balance does, is really crucial to get the nation on this right path. But the policies on how we get there are also vital. We need major transformational changes. But one of the things that concerns me is that just that doubling down on failed policies of the past simply won't cut it. One of the things that we've heard a lot of chatter about over the last week or so ought to be completely off the table, and that's what I call provider cuts in things like Medicare and Medicaid, whether it's through Obama's ration board, the IPAB, or through some Medicaid scheme that would do the same thing. These things don't cut it. They ought to be off the table and out of the discussion. And we really need to look for transformational changes that will be market-based solutions that will allow choice and competition and result in better care and better outcomes. So again, that's why cut, cap, and balance is the right kind of approach. And it's also something that every single American can understand. One of the things that we need to have in addition to cut, cap, and balance, though, is the policy details. So if you'll indulge me, I want to talk a little bit about the Heritage Plan, which delivers the policy details. It should be on, I think, all of your chairs, and it's called Saving the American Dream, because that's really what we're talking about here, saving the American dream. It is under assault. And what we accomplish in our plan is that we do balance the budget. We do it in 10 years, and we do it without raising taxes. We also keep the budget balanced after that 10 years, and in a sense, that's almost the harder job, because what happens in the 2020 decade is that all the baby boomers like me are going to really start retiring or be fully invested in Medicare and Social Security and for some, Medicaid. So the really hard work actually doesn't begin this decade, it begins in the next decade. So let me just remind everybody that the path that we're on. Today, spending spending is at 25% of GDP, about 1/4 of our economic activity, and our publicly held debt is 70% of GDP. It's other than World War II, a historically high level. But in the future, in a generation, if we want to think about what we want to pass on to our next generations, in 25 years, spending will be 35% of GDP, if things go well. Debt will be 185% of GDP, if things go well. Under our plan, spending will be 18.5% of GDP, and the debt will be 30% and falling. Now, how do we get there? Well, in our plan, we actually set some priorities, and we look to the Constitution for that. What a novel approach. So we look at one of the core constitutional functions of the federal government is to provide for the common defense. We make sure that it's adequately funded because our prosperity depends on our security. We also transform the entitlement program, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So when you think about these programs, they're an unlimited stream of benefits to all or nearly all Americans, and they are vastly unaffordable. So when you think about it, Social Security and Medicare are sort of like the old-style defined benefit retirement systems of the private sector. They burdened businesses, and they were abandoned years ago. Except, I guess, if you're Detroit or a big labor organization, and now they're bankrupting you, right? So what we do for entitlements is to move towards a solution similar to what businesses did, called a defined contribution. It's a limited contribution that is guaranteed to meet the basic needs for people. We do this in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid in a couple of different ways. And not only are these affordable, but they also have the benefits of providing competition, letting the market work, of providing choice, ownership, and control, all things that are very, very important to us. So that's those are sort of the cores of how we get spending under control. But remember, think back what I said. We need two things, right? We need spending cuts, and we also need a growth agenda. So in our plan, we have a bold, sweeping plan for tax reform that will meet and deliver the strong growth that the nation needs. So in short, our plan provides economic security for our seniors so they know they'll never have to live in poverty and they will have the health care that they need. But we also give economic freedom to the younger generations so that our kids and our grandkids can truly enjoy the same freedom and opportunity that we had and that our parents had.